which you are not. All right. So, got all that out of the way. Let's just take a nice deep inhale as you're coming into a settled seat. Maybe a big exhale. If that feels helpful, you might do a couple more of those. Just a deep inhale and that longer exhale. And when those breaths feel complete to you, just returning to your nice, easy breathing here. The body is breathing itself. There's no effort to breath. And as you're starting to feel settled, maybe just a moment to check in to see what might be present for you in this moment. Is there something present in the physical body that's gaining your attention? Maybe you're having some thoughts or feelings that you're noticing. If we can, we try to notice all of those things, sensations, feelings, thoughts, with curiosity. And then taking a moment to notice your connection to the mat, to the floor, noticing where you feel some weight in the body. Maybe it's your seat, the thighs, the shins. Perhaps you're resting on blocks and you feel more of the sharp points. Ankles, feet. This seat here and this connection, just bringing awareness, can help us feel grounded, can begin to center us. And taking a moment to notice your spine. And if we could travel from our seat all the way out through the top of our head, we notice from the bottom up, from that root chakra all the way up to the seventh chakra, the crown chakra. And just this witnessing as you're making little stops and checking it up through that spine if sensation is present. Sometimes that witnessing brings awareness and a sense of energy. Some of us may even see colors. And witnessing the shoulders. And when you exhale next, perhaps those shoulders feel really heavy. They just start to melt away from your ears. That heaviness or sense of weight might even travel through the upper arms, those forearms, and the palms. And then noticing your head. And perhaps it's helpful to notice the roof of your mouth and trace a line to the back of your head from the roof of your mouth. And that's that spot where we really articulate from, where our head is moving from. And maybe we notice that spot as it sits right on top of those shoulders, right on top of that torso, right on top of the pelvis. And with your next couple of exhales, noticing the belly as you exhale. So, this space between the bottom rib cage, the top of those hip bones or waistband. When you're exhaling, usually a very natural motion is to have a gentle drawing in without effort. you might add just a tiny bit of effort to that exhale, a tightening of those stomach muscles. And then bringing some awareness to the inhale and where you feel that inhale expand into. Is it the throat, the chest? Does it travel to the belly? We can add that exhale in, that gentle drawing in of the belly, that deflation of the belly, the chest, and the breath moving out through the nose or mouth. When you're ready, just taking one more deep inhale and perhaps pause at the top, hold on to it, let a little pressure build. And then exhaling it out the mouth as if you get that last kind of settling breath, that last whoosh to release any tension we may have gathered in the torso. We're going to come to our hands and knees. We're going to flow a little bit today. We're going to be going up and down. So, want to just review some of our choices as we begin, what we can do for down dog, where we can be if we don't like that up and down idea. There's always ways to move through that suit you today. So we are going to come to hands and knees. We'll have our palms right underneath our shoulders. If you've got those palms on, we're going to spread those fingers. It's almost like you're giving your mat a high five. You can always be on fist as well. And give your tail a little shake here and maybe even your ears. Ears might rock side to side or head with your ears. I'm not sure we can get our ears to rock side to side. And then come to a space where you feel like your weight is settled between the palms, the knees, and keeping a neutral spine. So I'm long through my spine, top of the head through the tailbone. I'm just going to notice a little bit of what it feels like to be here in neutral. So neutral is a weird word. Like, what's our spine like today? If you can, we're going to tuck our toes and keep that neutral spine. If tucking toes is tricky, leave your toes pointed. And we're just going to start to rock a little bit forward and back. So I'm going to send my hips back without really arching my back or rounding my back. And then I'm going to draw back forward into this neutral space. So I'll exhale to send it back. And inhale. A lot of times we move right into cat cow, useful for sure. Here, we're really trying to find what's my spine feeling like today. Where is it neutral? So then I can understand as I'm moving through my cat cow how it feels to come back through that space, that middle space. Let's do one more of those. Checking in with knees, hips, toes. Oh, stretching ankles a little bit too. We're going to rise back up, pointing those toes and then intentionally pressing the tops of your feet in. As you press the tops of your feet in, let your tailbone tuck. We're going right through our cat cow now. Find that neutral space and then drop the belly as you come into the cow part of cat cow. So we're always coming through that straight line from tailbone to head and then changing it from a bow to an arch. And we'll move again with your breath. So sometimes, as you know, I make you inhale or exhale too fast. And if that's the case, take your time. Think about that rounding the cat part as your exhale. We come back through neutral and find our inhale as we let our belly drop to look forward. We'll do two more of these. Check in. Have you let up on the pressure on the feet? Is it possible to continue to keep some pressure in the tops of the feet? Usually a little harder when you're in that cow position instead of the cat position. And then as you're finding your way through your very last cat cow, come back to that neutral space. We're going to walk our arms a little bit higher towards the top of your mat. Just taking this little bow here forehead might rest on the mat. You might stack your fists in order to get the head down. Big stretch here for that upper torso area, underarms, and arms. Now, this is going to feel a little tricky. This is our melting heart when we let our belly drop, our chest is opening. Could you tuck your tailbone just a little bit and find your neutral spine again? What you'll, I hope, feel or sense is that's going to activate a little bit more of your arms, give you a bigger, deeper stretch to those arms. If all of this feels very intense on those shoulders, you can be sitting back in child's pose. In our yan practice, we're calling this quarter dog. So we can find quarter dog if down dog as we move through our flow doesn't work well for us today for whatever reason. We're going to shift back into child's pose. Maybe we're on elbows and knees. Perhaps hands can come all the way down by your side. And if it's appropriate for you, rolling across that forehead. It's like we're shaking our head no. And knowing that child's pose is an option when we're in our down dog or any of our flow. Sometimes as we're going through flow, I used to see this a lot in class. Press yourself right back into child's pose and join us when we're in our standing poses. That's a possibility too. We'll rise back up to tabletop. We're going to shake our tail feathers. We're going to give it all a good wiggle. And then when you're ready, coming down to elbows. So my palms are down and they're on. I'm going to come down to elbows and I'm going to give just this kind of rocking sensation to plank and then a bit of quarter dog. Now, as you're coming forward, as you're bringing those shoulders right above your elbows, see if you can tuck your tailbone a little bit. It's a good activation of your shoulder muscles, of your triceps. And again, checking in with knees and hips. Always an option not to go down in full plank. You can go down to knees, come down to your belly when we're going through that flow. Or you can rock like this and join us in down dog or your version of down dog. Tuck your toes. Here we go. We're going to press into palms. We're going to send tailbone up towards the ceiling. We're going to run the dog. So we're going to bend one knee and then the other. You can be in quarter dog. You can be in child's pose. Maybe we do a little bit of wagging the dog, so you can wag your tail. You might do a little bit of a hula hoop here where you're circling hips. You might reverse that circle. When you're ready, we're going to walk our feet towards our hands. We'll be towards the front of our mat. Take just a moment here to drop your head to look through your legs. If having head lower than the heart makes you dizzy or builds too much pressure, you can always bring your forearms to your knees to lift your head about the height of your heart. If we can let the head drop, we're going to give our head a nice nod yes, a good shake no. We'll use an exhale to slowly roll up to a standing position. And then clasping hands behind you. So right now we're just grab and hold a hand so we have a little more free elbow. We're going to take elbows and squeeze them together. Now I'm careful here not to arch my back. So I'm just doing elbows and then releasing. Or we can think shoulder blades and then releasing. But a little opening for that heart space, a little bit, excuse me, more mobility for shoulders without arching your back. And then let those hands come on down by your side. Give your feet a little peek here. They can get as close or as far apart as you like. We're going to find our mountain pose feet. Some of you may find big toes together and a little space between the heels is where you want to be. Some of you may find a wider stance feels a little bit better. If you will, give your shoulders a little bounce. And then at some point, we're going to let them land. And palms can face the thighs or they can face forward. Check in with those knees. We're trying not to lock out knees. Trying not to overfire your glutes. So maybe those glutes do have to fire, but maybe we can just check in, see if we're really squeezing them, and could we let go of some of that squeeze? Check again with the roof of your mouth, the back of your head, and how it might be sitting right on top of those shoulders. So this soft alignment of the body, nothing's locked out. We're not arching, we're not rounding. We don't have a whole lot of tension, hopefully, through our buns or our thighs, but we're strong here. We're really holding this space in strength. We'll bring our hands to our heart. When you're ready, we're going to take a nice deep inhale, reach those fingertips. As you exhale, we'll keep those knees soft on this first one as we dive forward or round forward, probably a better word. We're going to find shins or thighs to come up into our flat, neutral back. So here we are again, finding neutral. Often we let our belly drop and let our tail feathers shine. That's not bad. But today we're going to see if we can find that neutral space. We'll release back to look through those legs. Arms reach wide as we rise back up. Fingertips reach to the sky. We exhale, hands come to heart. Let's do that 3 more times. Inhale, fingertips reach. Keeping knees soft, we'll round forward. Press into what you can press into to find that neutral spine, flat back. And then release down, look through those legs. Arms reach wide as we rise back up. And then we'll exhale, hands come to heart. Inhaling up. Exhale, reach wide, soften knees. If it's appropriate to straighten those legs at this point, you can. We're going to inhale to neutral spine. Exhale, release. See if you can really release the head to look through the legs. Arms reach wide as we rise back up. And exhale, hands come to heart. We'll do one more time. Inhale, reach. Exhale, keeping knees soft. Pardon me, got scratchy throat today. Inhale, halfway lift to that flat back. Exhale, release down. We're going to go through our first flow. Know that you have all the options not to. We're going to step back into our plank. If you're going down full chaturanga, shifting to your tippy toes. I'm going to lower to my knees so I can come down and protect shoulder and neck. Keep a low cobra for this first round, but we're going to hold low cobra. So 3 breaths in your low cobra. And I have quite a lot of weight in my palms and the tops of my feet. I'm back to tops of my feet, just like my cat cow. We're just trying to fire up some of those back muscles so they remember to fire throughout our practice. When you're ready, tuck your toes, your version of down dog. Maybe you're running a dog. Maybe it's a wiggly dog. You can always do 3-legged dog too. And if that's something you need a reminder for, one leg reaches up towards the ceiling. You might even open the hip and let the knee bend, or you can keep that straight leg reaching and just give it a good switch from side to side as we're holding our down dog for 5 breaths. Doesn't have to be the stable pose, but you might enjoy the stable pose. We're going to send our right foot between the hands. We'll rise up, hips towards the front of your mat and just hands on hips to make sure we've got that space. Give yourself a little bend in and out of that knee. When you're ready, you can add arms, warrior 1 arms, cactus arms, or hands reaching behind with elbows squeezing without arching your belly. So where do you want to be here? Shoulders melting down, straight, strong arms open out wide. Cactus arms with a little squeeze of those shoulder blades or hands behind your back. Is the weight equal between the front and the back foot? Could we make any adjustments here that make you feel stronger and longer through the torso, as if we were going to draw our heels towards each other? We're going to shift into our warrior 2. And the trickiest part about that is that front knee gets sneaky. We're going to bring our right hand forward without twisting our right knee inside. Left hand behind. Again, noticing weight. All of our focus and energy is going forward. So often we feel like we've got a lot of weight forward. Could we give some notice to that back leg, that back arm? We're going to rise back up through our warrior 1. So we shift the hips forward without shifting knee. And then we're going to let our hands come down to frame the foot. We're going through our version of our flow. So here we go. We lower down to the earth. This time, low cobra or full up dog. Press back into down dog. 5 breaths here, doing whatever you want with that down dog. Run the dog, 3-legged dog, wag the dog. Maybe you're shifting back and forth from plank to down dog. Perhaps you're holding still. Breathing fully, no matter what you've chosen. We try not to hold the breath. Sometimes when we're upside down, it's easy to think about holding that breath. When you exhale next, so this time left foot steps forward. We plant that back foot, we rise up, hands to hips just to keep our hips honest. And then maybe bend in and out of that knee just a little bit. And then when you're ready, arms reach up. Any version here, cactus arms, hands behind the back, squeezing elbows. Noticing weight. Noticing torso here. We think about that neutral spine. Are we arching forward and kind of hanging out in our low back? Could we do a little tailbone tuck to get a neutral space through that spine? We'll shift into our warrior two. So left hand forward, right hand back without shifting that knee. Usually kind of our guide for that kneecap is it's traveling over the second toe, big toe, second toe. If it's inside of the foot, we know it twisted. And over time, it's going to do a little bit of difficult damage through that knee. So that's why we're always so picky, or I'm so picky about making sure that knee tracks. We don't want, and those got to last a long time, right? When you're ready, come back into your warrior one. And then we're going to frame the foot. We're going to step back. We'll go through our flow. So we'll lower down in a way that makes sense for you. We'll come into our back bend that makes sense for you. Maybe it's low cobra or up dog. Pressing back this time instead of down dog into child's pose. Now, if down dog's a favorite and child's pose isn't, you're always welcome to do down dog. But here we're just going to take a quick break. Breathing into the space that we've created. If you are in down dog, you can do all the fun little modifications as they suit you. For everyone, we'll rise up, tabletop, right foot comes forward. Right foot comes forward. We're going to plant that back foot. We're going to rise up, warrior one first. And then we're going to shift into our warrior two, which means I'm going to turn away from you here for a moment. And we'll straighten our front leg. So we're going into our triangle pose. So as you go into triangle, see if you can first shift your hip back and reach to the front of your mat. And then let that front hand come inside or outside of the leg. While your back hand has all the options, slide behind the back. It can go any angle along, including up towards the ceiling. What we're checking here is that our shoulders are stacked, our heart is stacked. Sometimes you're trying to reach lower, your heart rotates towards the floor. So we try not to think about how low we can go. How open can we get? Could I reach for the ceiling, arching through that rib cage, not the back so much? And can I spiral that heart center to the long side of my mat? Bend into your front knee, rise back up your warrior two, send it back into warrior one. So we're doing a lot of shifting through those hips, which can be a balance challenge. I jinxed myself. I looked sideways and fell out of balance. We're going to go ahead, frame the foot. One last flow here. So we'll move through to lower down to the earth. Inhale, low cobra or up dog. Exhale, pressing back down dog. Any version here. Could be child's pose, could also be quarter dog. Neutral spine. If you're like me, it's really easy to let your rib cage pop because I'm super bendy in my low back, but not bendy at all in my upper back. So really have to kind of tuck my tailbone here. You may find that the cue to being neutral spine is you're always a neutral spine because you aren't that bendy in the back or that you're not constructed that way. When you're ready, left foot steps forward. We're going to cartwheel up. I shouldn't say cartwheel. We're going to come into our warrior one first. Find your warrior two. So now left hand forward, right hand back. Straighten the front leg. Hit your hip to the back of the mat. Reach to the front of the mat and find where you want to go in your triangle pose. So we're going to play around with this. And instead of going through flow, we're going to be flipping the mat or flipping ourselves on the mat. I'll tell you what that all means in just a second, but just to prepare your brain for the front of your mat will be the back of your mat and vice versa. Bend into your knee, rise back up. We're going to turn both toes in the same direction. Let your hands come to hips. So by playing around here, I want you to find what you like best. Warrior one, warrior two, triangle options. Maybe you like exalted warrior. Perhaps you like your side angle. We're going to pick a leg to be the front of your mat. So I'm actually going to switch. So I'm facing you. We're going to pick a leg to be the front of your mat, and we're going to start to kind of wiggle through. Take your time to wiggle through. And then when you're ready, we'll all come back to toes turning in the same direction. We'll heel toe together to find your mountain pose, and I'll know that you're ready to move on. All right, here we go. So playing for yourself. Just a reminder, hips forward for warrior one, hips open to long edge, straight leg for triangle. If you're doing a little angle pose here, you bend the knee and elbow comes to knee. So play around here. Maybe you want to hold something longer. Maybe there's a pose you love that we didn't do here in our standing poses. This playing around is really finding what appeals to you or what challenges you. Sometimes that's what it's about, right? You can move through, you can hold longer. When you feel one side is done, you just flip, making the other short edge of your mat your space or your front space of your mat, and then moving through and playing. No rush here. When you feel it's complete, we'll heel toe to find your mountain pose. No rush. If you haven't yet found your mountain pose, coming into that space, palms facing thighs, facing forward, stacking everything here, soft knees, not a lot of squeeze to the buns, arms heavy, shoulders melting away from the ears, head gently resting on top of those shoulders and neck. Just tuning in here to see what's present in this moment. Are there physical sensations that are present? Maybe we're having a lot of thoughts. Maybe have some feelings about all of that. We're going to move through a balance today, which is version of eagle pose. And this is where we start to look a little pretzely. If tree pose is better for you, all the trees, let yourself be in tree pose. Eagle pose, we're going to start without the arms. So hands will come to press right at heart if that feels centering for you, or maybe it feels more centering to have your arms out. We're going to take and soften our knees, almost like we were getting ready to have a seat. And I'm going to cross my right leg over the front of my left leg. Now, this is the very first layer here of our balance. So we might keep our toes on. We might be able to sit just a bit lower. We're coming forward from the hips, keeping that neutral spine. Here's now why I was harping on neutral spine, right? Just to make sure we aren't arching. And as we lower, we might find that we're able to lift the foot to hover. We might not. We might keep the toes on. And we're just noticing this side. Drawing belly in, maybe even erring on the side of a tailbone tuck. We're going to feel this is a strength builder in the legs for sure. When you're ready, come on out. Let your hands come down and give everything a good little shake and a wiggle. Bounce if it feels good. Hands back to your centering space. We're going to shift weight to your right leg, cross the left leg over. We start to have a small seat. Again, paying attention, maybe a little tailbone tuck here. So we are an arching back. Maybe we lift toes and have a deeper seat. If through this process, you're finding this is not for you, tree pose is always available. We're going to come on out, bring the feet down, give it all a good wiggle. All right, here's what complicates it just a little bit. We are going to add in the arms. And we do this stretch a lot in yoga. It's your left arm that's going to be on top that makes the letter X. It might be able to make a letter V. You might be either I or interlaced I. So arms in some position here, which is going to make it a little bit trickier, right? So we're going to shift our weight to our left leg and cross your right leg over while your arms are intertwined. Then we start to have our seat. And we start to decide if we want to pull toes off. If we want to go into a deeper seat, tuck the tailbone, engage that core. Our drishti, our gaze is very steady. We know it's harder to hold longer, so we're holding longer. If you want to release in a dramatic fashion, send your arms out, kick your leg out, let everything come back down, give it a good little wiggle. We got to do the other side. So this time it's your right arm that's on top. Right arm starts with the letter X, V, I, interlaced. We shift weight to your right leg and cross the left leg over. Start to have your seat. If you want to lift the foot off, you can. We're tucking our tailbone here, protecting that low back. It's one of those poses where stuff can land in your low back, super tight low back, if we're not in that neutral spine. Longer hold is harder to balance. If you decide you want to release dramatically, and come on, bend through those legs. Give yourself a good wiggle. We're going to come to have a seat. Doesn't have to be fancy how we get there. If you have blocks available, grab your blocks if those help you stay out of your hips and place them underneath your buns. So if you have blocks underneath buns, if that's helpful. If you don't have blocks, that's okay. We are going to be stretching hamstrings. Here's my caution to anybody working with IT, or not IT. We're all working with IT stuff, SI stuff. I'll get my abbreviations. If you're working with sacroiliac joint stuff, or if you have been outside a lot and bending over, do both legs at the same time. Don't do one and then the other, because that can irritate your SI joint. So do be careful here. If that doesn't apply to you, we're going to take your right leg and we're going to bend it. And it might travel anywhere along your shin, your calf. For me, I even bend it and open up just a little bit so I get a little extra stretch through that hamstring. I'm going to flex my left toes because that's going to make it interesting. And from here, think about on your inhale, you're going a little bit taller. As you exhale, we're going to start with a hinge from the hips. So my back is in neutral, not rounding so much. It might rest on your thigh, it might rest on your shin, your hands, or they may rest down by your side to frame that leg. When you're exhaling, you're deciding if there's more to be gained, and you go just a little bit lower. You pause on your inhale to check. At some point, your hamstring says, yep, that's it, no more. And once it says no more, we let our back round and we do our best to settle in. There are going to be a few of you who reach your foot. So you might grab hold of your foot to draw yourself a little bit deeper. There are going to be one or two of you, I would guess, who, if you have a block handy, you put it at the bottom of your foot so you can actually go deeper. So if you have a block and you have long arms, you might end up placing at the bottom of your foot to go deeper. This big stretch of that left back of the leg. We'll do one more breath here, one more full deep inhale and exhale. And carefully here, so let's do this. This makes it a little bit fun. We're going to carefully walk our way back up without changing anything until We're fully seated. Then stretch that right leg out and see if your other leg's a little bit longer. Usually it's longer. Mine's significantly longer by about an inch. We're going to switch sides. So now we're going to bend in that left leg. It gets to travel if it's appropriate. Appropriate might be right down by your ankle, especially if you have a hip structure that doesn't allow the knee to rotate out. Find length through the spine. Find a hinge first. So we keep a long, tall spine. It's almost like someone took our torso and tried to lift it out of our hips. And then we start to hinge forward, hands appropriately resting on side or leg. And use your exhale to find the deeper expression of this until you found your edge. So we're flexing our toes, rounding forward when we've reached the full length of, or full expression, I should say, of this particular pose. And if you're like 99% of the rest of us, you're going to find one side is like, yeah, that wasn't too bad. And the other side is like, holy moly, this is super tight. Using your exhale once you found your edge to settle into the pose, to see if there's ease to be found. Could you relax your jaw, your shoulders? We're going to release this the same way we did the other one. Very carefully, we're going to walk ourselves back up. Once you're in your full seat, stretch the leg. Hopefully your legs are the same length. You won't walk in a circle today. That'll be good news. And give those ankles a little bit of circle, a little bit of wiggle. We are going to move through today. We're going to 2 inversions. So we're going to do our fish pose today, and we're going to do our bridge pose. So we are getting ready to shift to the floor. If you need to move your screen, I'm going to demonstrate our fish very over instructory. So that's one you can go right into if you know where you're headed in fish. If fish is not familiar to you, or contraindications, if you have a neck injury, neck challenges, sometimes fish can help and sometimes it can hurt. So please do be careful. If you're not going into fish, go into pinnacle where you've got your feet long or your legs long, your feet wide, arms out to letter V. So here we go for fish. If you need to view it, view it. If you know where you're headed, don't wait on me. I'm going to take my hair out, maybe. So we start with palms down and arms long, and they go right underneath our bun cheeks. So for some of us, they're going to stop at our waistband. For some of us, they're going to get closer to the thighs. Bring your big toes together to touch. So I'm flexing my feet just like when I was in my hamstring stretch, and my big toes are touching. This is all about the elbows. And once you are in fish pose, please make sure you keep your gaze on the ceiling. So I'm going to press into my elbows to lift my heart up towards the ceiling. And then I'm going to very gently let my head drop back. So if I was having a conversation with the person on the next mat over, it would be easy for me to talk. Now my throat isn't so constricted because my head is too far back that I wouldn't be able to talk when I'm in this particular space. Big chest opener, throat chakra opener. We've been kind of really, I think, focusing on shoulders a lot, both in our slow flow and our yen. This is great release for the shoulders. We're going to do one more breath here. To release this pose, we nod our chin to look down at our toes, and then we're going to slowly lower our head back to the earth. Come off of those arms. I always like to go to a bit of a rock concert where we're kind of throwing those arms up and bending elbows, or maybe you're a drummer. And let's do a little counter stretch here, knees into chest. It might feel good to rock those knees side to side. If it makes sense for your head and neck, you can lift your nose towards your knees. If that doesn't make sense, leave the head on the floor. And then we're going to rest the head back down, feet come to the floor. This is a time if you do wheel pose, shoulder stand, or if you are doing, what am I forgetting, plow, this is your time. Otherwise, join me. We're going to do our bridge pose. So I'm going to bring my heels fairly close to my bottom, but not so close that my knees go over the length of my toes when I lift. So I do want to be a little bit careful here. You can have hands down by your side, palms up, palms down. You can have them out into a T. I like to keep my elbows bent and have my arms, upper arms tucked into my rib cage. We're going to lift our hips when you're ready on an inhale up towards the ceiling. We're pressing through big toe mounds. So when we had our toes together for fish, we're pressing through big toe mounds here to keep us really honest through those inner thighs. We have a tendency to let our feet splay out and then our thighs and knees follow that. We want to have some alignment here for energetic reasons, but also for maybe a little bit of patterning for our muscles. And again, a space, if you are in bridge pose, that you would be able to have a comfortable conversation with the weight between your shoulders, not in the back of your head. For all of us, no matter what pose you're in, go ahead and allow yourself to come on out. If you're in bridge, you might wrap those arms around your heart as you slowly melt down. Another counter stretch, this time knees into chest, or maybe happy baby. If you like happy baby, that's the one where we're sending our knees out towards our rib cage, underarm area. We might hold on behind thighs or our calves or ankles or inside or outside of the feet. We can also have knees into chest. We're going to do a little bit of hip opening here. So for all of us, if you'll send your feet up towards the ceiling, I'm going to rock and roll until I've got my hands back underneath my buns, palms facing down. That's to protect my back. So I give a little tilt to my pelvis, especially if back is tender or core isn't as strong as you would like it to be. This is helpful. I'm going to ask you just to point and flex your feet here. Now, if legs don't go long, we know that's not the most important part of this, right? We're just trying to get some stretch through the backs of the legs by pointing and flexing toes. That can increase the stretch. Straight legs, maybe, but it doesn't mean we're not getting the benefit if they're not straight. This pointing and flexing is taking nerves, running them through that connective tissue and muscle like we're flossing, like we would floss our teeth. So we're hopefully getting those nerves to be a little less restricted by our tissue. And of course, work at their optimal level. Let's do our number 4 stretch. I'm going to take my right ankle and cross it over the top of my left thigh, interlacing fingers behind that left thigh to draw that knee in. There are going to be a few of you who do a little bit deeper pose because of your hip structure. You might stack one knee on top of the other and then send your ankles out to each side and grab hold of your ankle bones. You can let those ankles then travel away from your hips to increase the stretch or be closer to the hips to lessen the stretch here. So number 4 stretch or shoelace pose while resting on your back to open up IT band and piriformis. We're checking in with breath here. Sometimes this feels like a nice releasing stretch. Sometimes it is one of the hardest stretches you'll do. If it's feeling challenging, we want to make sure we're inhaling and exhaling fully and maybe even exhaling with a little longer exhale. Try not to hold our breath. We signal our body a whole different response will be in store when we hold our breath versus breathing smoothly in and out. For everyone, take your legs straight up towards the ceiling and then just switch. So we come out of compression and go now left ankle crosses over right, or knees might stack. We'll draw that right thigh in by interlacing fingers behind it. And checking in with breath. Breathing fully here. We'll stretch legs briefly back up towards the ceiling. Maybe do a little bit of pedaling, flex and point. And then bringing the soles of the feet back to the floor, getting ready for a twist. a twist of any choice of yours that you want to do. So stacked knees might be one. You might do left thigh over the top of the right, dropping knees to the right. You might draw your left knee into the chest while your right leg is long. So I am going to switch. It looks a little confusing here. I'm going to go with my correct side. I've been mirroring. So we're going to either stack knees, do left over the top of the right, or draw left knee in. If there's another twist that you know of that you like, feel free to go into that twist. Knees do drop over to the right, however. Arms are comfy. You're gonna see me close mine down a little bit and try not to arch my back. You might have your arms out in a T. You might have your hands overhead. Me not arching my back is working with some alignment stuff these days that I'm trying to keep that bottom rib from over popping. While we're resting here, just some deep inhales and exhales. You can also look over that left shoulder to add a little more neck stretch. We'll bring our knees and gaze back through the center. It might feel good to wiggle a little bit. Our sides don't have to match. What you picked on that side does not have to match on this side. But if you are doing twisted roots, it's the right thigh on top or the right knee in with the left leg long. We'll drop knees over to that left side. If you like, you can take that gaze and look over the right side. Nice, easy breath here. I hope. When you're ready, we'll come on back through center. We are going to get ready to go into our final relaxation space. So, the invitation here is to find any space for yourself that feels like it's relaxing to you. That could be resting on your back. You could have straight legs, bent knees, something behind the knees, like a blanket or blocks to support that. You can be resting on your side, on your belly. Maybe you love the twist. If you've cooled down, you may want to grab hold of a sweater, sweatshirt, socks, yoga blanket. When you're feeling more settled in that space that you're ready to rest in, you might give yourself a few of those deep inhales and longer exhales. You might even imagine those exhales are settling into the weight of the body. And once those breaths feel complete, we invite the body to breathe itself. Breath traveling as it chooses without effort. We invite those longer pauses between thoughts with the hopes that maybe that invitation will help quiet the mind. We let go of all of the doing of our morning, of our hours practice. We invite ourselves to just simply be, to be resting here in a sense of ease, to be resting, even in a sense of well being, to be resting here in silence for the next few minutes. Beginning to bring awareness back to the sound of my voice, back to the space that you're resting in. Inviting that deeper inhale, that longer exhale. And beginning to reawaken the body, maybe wiggling fingers and toes, circling wrists and ankles. It might feel good to stretch arms overhead. It might feel good to draw knees into chest. And in your own way, in your own time, we're going to begin to make our way into a seated position that feels comfortable to you. And as you find your way to that comfortable seat, just pausing here for a moment, noticing what's present for you, what might be present in the physical body, what might be present in the thinking mind and feeling bodies. And today, for pranayama, I would invite you to simply notice the rhythm of your breath. So, just counting for yourself the number of beats it takes you to breathe in, the number of beats it takes you to breathe out. We'll talk a little bit about why we're using this breath when we complete it. So, just about a minute, minute and a half here of noticing your breath and the number of beats it takes you to breathe in and breathe out. Noticing as we finish off that awareness of how the breath was flowing. Sometimes that rhythm really changes through class. Maybe bringing some awareness to whether or not you had thoughts during that practice. Was it easier to practice awareness of breath at the end versus the beginning of class? It's a great breath, this awareness of rhythm to do any time you're trying to quiet the mind. It's just really hard to hold both thought and awareness of physical sensation together. But it also starts to inform us of how things are changing or remaining the same. That may be a possibility too. If this gesture feels okay to you, we'll place our palms together, resting thumbs right in front of our heart. May all be well. May all have peace. And may we all be filled with compassion and loving kindness. The light in me is honored and grateful for the light in each of you. I bow to you. Namaste.